Hi, I'm Daniel, and Toy Story 5 is finally here in 2026. Is it just me who expected to get delayed at some point? Maybe because that what happened to previous installments, but this was just announced to release in 2026 and came out 2026 no problem. Anyway, I had mixed feelings going into this, as someone who loved the first four movies, specifically Toy Story 4 that I just did a video defending. I found that to be such a beautiful ending, and theme surrounding stepping back that made such an effective return to the franchise. While I'm aware how divisive Toy Story 4 is, and didn't want to miss a new installment the same way people did to that, I struggled to see much new ways for this to go. As trailers came out, I appreciate how this looked to keep Toy Story 4's impact and wasn't trying to be another ending. But also, they weren't saying the movie. Toy Story 4 trailers made it out to be a very emotional ending, while this just looked like a fun time with the main hook being What If iPad. My thoughts were leaning a bit negative going in, even knowing it wouldn't be bad, as Pixar still has a good track record. I really liked EO, and loved Hopper's Inside Out too. So of course, I was brought into the Toy Story charm almost immediately, and think this is just a good movie. But at the same time, this is the weakest, which I expected, but still felt very noticeable, especially when looking at Toy Story 4, which aimed higher, which led to it being more divisive, but just far more impactful. I find the Yarwhal is great there to just be good here. In this video, I'll discuss my thoughts on the film and how it compares to the franchise as a whole. It's a sequel, it's hard not to compare to movies in the same franchise. This story involves Bonnie getting an iPad that puts the toys in danger, with Jessie off of the farm trying to get back and help Bonnie make friends. While Woody returns to Bonnie's room to help comfort the iPad. Also, there's an army of washed up Buzz Lightyear toys roaming around. This cuts between three plots, and side plots aren't new for this franchise, but the cut in between the three felt a bit much, regardless of the quality. The pacing made it all drag and how they are cut between, most evidently when one imagine playtime scene is split up. Still, I think these plots are good when we're liking what was done with Jessie and how it ties to the second movie without overdoing it. It feels more than just a reference, and I like how it progressed. The Buzz Army plot is also so much fun. I originally felt bringing back Space Ranger Buzz was done too much in this franchise, but this just works. Of course these Washer Up Buzz would team up, and I like the ways they eventually coincide with the main plots. These two plots are very good, but the parts back in Bonnie's room with Woody, Buzz and the others is a step weaker. I'll discuss more when I get to the characters, but it feels like in the middle not much happened with this third of the movie. It all comes together in the end, with the climax having that Toy Story wacky charm. At the same time, the writing and storytelling feels significantly weaker. Toy Story 3 did a great job subtly introducing Bonnie in a way where she didn't take the spotlight, while in comparison, this makes it so obvious when someone was an important character who's going to be relevant later. This started to get predictable, where the story has to go a certain way, while the previous movies kept the audience guessing more. I like the angle of exploring technology as a threat to toys and humanity, that's making us feel less connected, but also acknowledging it still has its pros and uses. At the same time, I found this played out exactly as expected, given they weren't going to make technology pure evil. There's also certain hijinks and ways toys interfere that is fine, but isn't new anymore. Toy Story 4 felt like different tonally, aiming for a more quiet approach. And I liked how it shifted away from having a clever concept about the toy to attempt a more emotional connection to how a toy lives. Randy Newman's score was just far more bigger and impactful there, with this still having a strong score, but it didn't hit as hard. Also, a Toy Story movie without a Randy Newman song feels cursed. The cinematography also felt far grander and more beautiful in Toy Story 4, even down to the larger aspect ratio. With that said, the animation still looks amazing, and showing Pixar at the top of their game and how dynamic the all sequences look. The style used for the playing sequences are especially great. So, like I are 50 movies, there's a lot of characters now. I know I keep mentioning Toy Story 4, but I liked how that didn't first have a side plot and felt confident in the main plot it was doing. At the same time, it also leaves our sidecast view little, which is repeated here and I continue to not mind it. Even as a Forky fan, I get why it's out of story potential, and the rest had the first three movies. To start, it's strange that the weakest character in a Toy Story movie are Woody and Buzz. I get why a Toy Story movie without Woody would feel wrong, and I like how this keeps his role as a yacht toy helping others. At the same time, he doesn't really do much here, What does he even accomplish? Buzz also gets a side plot running gag trying to propose to Jessie and constantly failing, which is the only romance plot anime sequel seemingly know how to do. I think it's only happened 3 times, but this plays out so similar to the Rescuers Down Under and Frozen 2. Buzz doesn't even get to sing Lost in the Woods here. The duo aren't bad here or anything like that, they just didn't add much to the film. I also found the big thing over Hugh's deputy to be very funny. This already had the good comedy coming from Buzz Army and the new character Smarty Pants. I like the way he plays off Jessie comedically, and the presentation of all technology here. I also like what this movie did for Bonnie, and expanding on her shyness and struggle to make friends. Excluding the last 10 minutes of Toy Story 3, this feels like the one where the humans get the most focus of the franchise. And I think that mostly worked here. I mainly like how this finally gave focus to Jessie. I personally found her one of the weaker parts of 3 and 4, with Buzzy passing down the sheriff badge to her not feeling deserved. These movies always felt confused if they wanted to be more of a main character or one of the other side characters. She has a strong arc tackling her relation to abandonment, and I like how she comes of a different year to Woody, coming in intervening first. I do find the movie might have been better if she was more of a main focus rather than cutting between other plots, but what here is still great. Lily Pad though is unfortunately a weak character in execution, who really gets to even be an antagonist with separating Jessie from her, and not doing much with them as foils. It's a shame because I really like Betty's voice acting, sounding technical but also emotional. Despite being over the marketing, she barely has much to do with her role in the third act feeling underdeveloped and sudden. She's a bit similar to Anxiety in this out too, with how she plans around Bonnie's life getting in conflict with the older ones, but that had a big revolution scene in the third act, and the movie more focused around her. I just find Lily Pad could have been so much better in the classic Toy Story movie, same with Yob aspects here. There's one reveal about Jessie that I really like as an idea and was a nice scene. At the same time, it was the type of thing I only mildly remember happened when thinking back on the movie. This didn't have a big cry moment, and while it did need to force one, it adds to this movie just feeling generally good. In conclusion, I give Toy Story 5 10 out of 10. I imagine most will enjoy this more as it's just a very likeable movie. I just find the weakness of your Pixar films, especially as a big Toy Story 4 appreciator, with this not having what makes that special. I am still up for Toy Story 6, and I like how these movies still feel made with your effort and care put into them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video reviewing and analysing this film. It's later than I wanted because it was too hot to record recently, but I've got some more rankings in the work and Minions and Monsters also out to review. So look out for that. The end.